Kim Dae-ho sat in his chair and watched the other aliens talk. They were loud today, louder than usual. The big hall was full of different creatures from across the galaxy. Some had blue skin, others had tentacles, and a few looked like giant insects. But they all had one thing in common. They thought humans were stupid. The Vrex delegate stood up on his 6 legs. His voice was sharp and angry. The humans want us to change our trade routes again. This is the 3rd time this year. Why should we listen to them? Park So-jin sat in the back of the room where the military people watched. She had been a soldier for 20 years. She knew when trouble was coming. The humans had found problems with the current space routes. Pirates were attacking ships. Some routes were taking too long. But the aliens did not want to hear about it. The Helian trade minister laughed. His laugh sounded like rocks falling down a hill. Humans are always scared of something. First they say pirates will attack more ships. Then they say trade will slow down. Now they want us to spend money on new routes. We have been using these routes for 50 years without problems. Lee Min-ho looked at his notes. He had spent months studying a dangerous force called the Void Swarm. These creatures ate entire star systems. His research showed they were coming this way. They would arrive in less than 2 years. But every time he tried to tell the council, they said he was making things up. The Void Swarm is real, Lee Min-ho said quietly. I have proof. We need to prepare defenses now, or millions will die. The room became quiet for a moment. Then the Altarian counselor made a sound like a horse snorting. Void Swarm? No one has seen these creatures for 1,000 years. You humans see danger everywhere. Maybe you should worry less and trust more. Kim Dae-ho had heard enough. He had been the human ambassador for 15 years. In all that time, humans had given good advice. They helped design the communication system that let different planets talk to each other instantly. They created the math that made trade routes faster and cheaper. They built the early warning systems that spotted pirates and natural disasters. But the aliens took it all for granted. When things worked well, they forgot who made them work. When humans warned about problems, they called it fear. When humans suggested improvements, they called it waste. Choi Yuna was the human money expert. She had tried to explain why the galaxy's economy was getting weak. Too many planets were buying things but not making enough to sell. Some star systems were running out of resources. Trade wars were starting between different species. But the aliens said she worried too much about small things. The Vrex delegate was still talking. Humans always have some new crisis to worry about. Last year they said our communication system needed fixing. The year before that, they said we needed better space patrols. Now they want us to change everything because of monsters that might not even exist. Park So-jin watched Kim Dae-ho's face. She had worked with him for 10 years. She knew when he was getting angry. But Kim Dae-ho was not the type to shout or make big speeches. He was quiet, like most humans in the government. He believed in working together and finding solutions. The vote came. Just like the last 3 times, the council said no to the human ideas. 47 species voted against the humans. Only 12 voted with them. The humans were outnumbered, and everyone knew it. The motion fails, announced the council speaker, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 eyes. Human proposals are rejected. We will continue with current policies. Kim Dae-ho stood up slowly. The room was getting noisy again as different aliens started talking to each other. Some were making jokes about human fears. Others were planning where to eat dinner. None of them were paying attention to the human section. That was their first mistake. Honored council members, Kim Dae-ho said. His voice was not loud, but something in his tone made the room quiet. The Human Federation has a statement. The council speaker looked annoyed. Ambassador Kim, the vote is finished. Your proposals have been considered and rejected. Yes, they have, Kim Dae-ho agreed. For the 3rd consecutive cycle, this council has chosen to ignore human analysis, reject human solutions, and dismiss human concerns. We understand your position clearly. Lee Min-ho was putting his research papers into his bag. He had spent 2 years studying the Void Swarm. His computers had tracked their movement across distant galaxies. He had found proof that they were heading this way, but the aliens thought he was lying or stupid. Choi Yuna was also packing up. Her economic reports showed that the galaxy was heading for trouble. Trade was slowing down. Some planets were running out of important materials. Wars were starting over resources. But the alien said the economy was fine. Park So-jin stood up from her seat in the military section. She had seen the intelligence reports about pirate attacks increasing. The current trade routes were not safe. Military patrols were spread too thin. But the alien said humans worried too much about security. Therefore, Kim Dae-ho continued, the Human Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The room went completely silent. Even the insects stopped clicking. The creatures with tentacles stopped moving. Everyone was staring at the human section. The council speaker blinked all four eyes. Ambassador Kim, surely you don't mean... We mean exactly what we said, Kim Dae-ho replied. Humanity is leaving the council. We will no longer participate in council votes, council projects, or council decisions. We wish you well in your future endeavors. The Vrex delegate stood up quickly. You cannot just leave. There are treaties. There are agreements. All of which will be honored until they expire, Kim Dae-ho said calmly. We will not break our word, but we will not renew any agreements either. Choi Yuna was walking toward the exit. Her bag was full of economic reports that could have saved the galaxy, money and prevented wars, but she was taking them with her. Lee Min-ho followed her. His research on the Void Swarm could have given the galaxy 2 years to prepare. Now that research would go back to human space. Park So-jin was the last to leave the military section. Her intelligence reports could have prevented thousands of deaths from pirate attacks, but the aliens had called her paranoid. As the human delegation walked toward the doors, the room exploded into noise. Aliens were shouting questions, making demands, and arguing with each other. Some wanted to vote again. Others wanted to make new offers to the humans. But Kim Dae-ho did not stop walking. Neither did any of the other humans. They had tried for years to help. They had been patient, polite, and professional. They had offered solutions and shared knowledge, and they had been dismissed, ignored, and ridiculed for their efforts. The big doors of the council hall closed behind the last human with a soft sound that no one heard over the shouting. But that soft sound marked the beginning of the end for the Galactic Council. The aliens just did not know it yet. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the council hall. At first, most aliens thought it was just angry talk. Humans always came back. They were the type who stayed and worked things out. They did not quit easily. But Admiral Jung Tae-woo was proving them wrong. He sat in his office on a human space station far from council space. His desk was covered with reports from human colonies, military bases, and research stations all across the galaxy. Each report said the same thing. Withdrawal complete. Status on the Kepler station? He asked Captain Oh Seung-ho, who stood at attention beside his desk. All human staff evacuated, sir. Dr. Naeunji's team took all their equipment and research. The station is still running on automatic systems, but without human maintenance it will start breaking down soon. Admiral Jang nodded. Kepler Station was where humans and aliens worked together on science projects. The humans had designed most of the important systems. Now those systems would have to work without the people who built them. What about the trade stations? Same story, sir. Human workers have left all the major trading posts. The aliens are trying to run them alone, but they don't know how the computer systems work. Several stations have already had major problems. This was happening everywhere. For 60 years, humans had been part of galactic civilization. They had built systems, created programs, and designed networks that made life easier for everyone. But they had done it so quietly that most aliens forgot how much humans actually did. Dr. Naeunji was packing the last of her equipment on Kepler Station. Her team had worked here for 5 years, studying quantum fold technology. This technology made it possible for messages to travel instantly across thousands of light years. Without it, the different planets could not talk to each other quickly. The alien scientists who worked with her looked confused and worried. Dr. Na, you cannot take the quantum computers, said Dr. Vextar, a Helian scientist. These belong to the station. Na Yunji looked at the machines she had spent years building and improving. I designed these computers. I wrote the programs that run them. My team built the parts that make them work. The computers belong to humanity. But how will we maintain the communication network without them? Naunji shrugged. That is your problem now. You voted to reject our help, remember? The truth was that the aliens had never really understood how their communication system worked. They knew how to use it, but they did not know how to fix it when things went wrong. They had always called human technicians to solve the hard problems. Now, there would be no human technicians to call. Captain Udabin was in charge of shutting down the human patrol routes. For decades, human ships had been patrolling the space lanes, watching for pirates and helping ships in trouble. It was quiet work that most aliens never noticed. All patrol ships are returning to human space, she reported to Admiral Zhang. The aliens are supposed to take over patrol duties, but they don't have enough ships in the right places. How long before pirate attacks increase? Admiral Zhang asked. 2 weeks? Maybe 3. The pirates are already moving into areas where our patrols used to be. This was exactly what Park So-jin had warned about in the council. Human intelligence had shown that pirates were getting bolder and better organized. They were just waiting for the right moment to strike. Without human patrols, that moment was coming soon. Meanwhile, the Vreks were discovering that managing trade routes was much harder than they thought. Trademaster Kix then sat in his office staring at reports that made no sense. Ships were taking much longer to reach their destinations. Some were getting lost. Others were running out of fuel in space. The efficient trade network that had worked perfectly for decades was falling apart. Where are the navigation programs that the humans used? He asked his assistant. They took them, sir. The programs were stored on human computers. Then get the mathematical formulas they used to plan the routes. Those were in human databases too, sir. Everything is gone. Kix then realized he had a serious problem. The Vreks had always been good at making deals and moving products, but the actual science of moving things efficiently through space, that had been a human specialty. Back on Earth, President Han Ji-sung was meeting with his cabinet. The room was full of reports about how the galaxy was reacting to humanity's departure. The Altarians sent another message asking us to reconsider, reported Foreign Minister Song Mi-ra. They're offering us a permanent seat on the council leadership. President Han smiled. 3 months ago, they wouldn't even listen to our ideas. Now they want us to lead the council? The Helians are offering exclusive trading rights for rare minerals, added Trade Minister Ro Hyun-soo. They say they understand our value now. And the Vreks? President Han asked. They're begging for help with their logistics problems. Apparently, their cargo ships are running into each other at major trade hubs. Everyone in the room laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. They had tried to help prevent these exact problems. The aliens had called their warnings foolish. Dr. Bei Ji-woo was monitoring communications from her lab on New Terra, a human colony in unexplored space. The quantum fold network that connected the galaxy was starting to fail, just as human engineers had predicted it would. The relay stations need maintenance every 6 months, she explained to her research team. The aliens don't know how to do the maintenance properly. We're seeing signal degradation across the entire network. Her assistant looked at the monitoring screens. How long before complete communication failure? At current rates of decay? Maybe a year. Less if they try to fix things themselves and make mistakes. This was the hidden truth about the galactic civilization. It looked advanced and sophisticated, but it relied heavily on human knowledge and human work. Humans had been the engineers, the maintenance workers, the problem solvers who kept everything running smoothly. The aliens had been the politicians, the merchants, and the public faces of galactic society. They made the speeches and the deals. But humans had built the foundation that made it all possible. Captain Oh Sung-ho was commanding the last human military vessel to leave Council space. His ship was loaded with equipment, personnel, and most importantly, knowledge. Everything that humans had learned about defending the galaxy was leaving with them. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving distress calls from 3 different systems. Pirate attacks. Are there any council ships in those areas? Yes, sir, but they're requesting human assistance with tactical coordination. Captain O thought about the good people who were dying while politicians argued. But he also thought about how those same politicians had called human military advice overly cautious paranoia. "Send our regrets," he ordered. "Inform them that the Human Federation is no longer available to provide tactical support." As his ship crossed the boundary into unexplored space, Captain O looked back one last time at the galaxy humanity was leaving behind. It had been their home for 60 years. They had friends there, memories, and hopes for a better future. But respect? No. The aliens had never respected humanity's contributions. Admiral Zhang received Captain O's final report with mixed feelings. The withdrawal was complete. Every human asset, every piece of human knowledge, and every human worker had been pulled back to human space. "Status of our new colonies?" he asked his staff. "Excellent, sir. Our ships have been exploring and settling the outer rim for decades. We have 17 fully established colonies and 32 research outposts. All are self-sufficient and growing." This was something the aliens had never known. While they had been focused on politics and trade in the main galaxy, humans had been quietly expanding into unexplored space. They had been preparing for the day when they might need to stand alone. That day had come sooner than expected. 3 months after walking away from the Council, humanity was not just surviving. They were thriving. Free from alien politics and bureaucracy, human colonies were advancing faster than ever before. New technologies were being developed, new worlds were being settled, and new possibilities were opening up. Behind them, the galaxy they had helped build for 60 years was starting to crumble. Communication networks were failing. Trade routes were becoming unsafe. Economic systems were showing stress, and the aliens were finally beginning to understand what they had lost when they dismissed the quiet humans who had held everything together. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was starting to break down in ways that no one had expected. Trademaster Kix then stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The numbers were getting worse every day. Cargo ships that used to take 5 days to travel between systems were now taking 8 days. Some ships were getting completely lost and had to be rescued. Others were running out of fuel in the middle of space. "How did the humans make this look so easy?" he muttered to his assistant. The assistant, a young Vrex named Pixstar, looked through the old files they had managed to save. "Sir, it seems the humans used something called predictive algorithms to plan routes. The computers would calculate the best paths based on traffic, fuel costs, and hazard reports. So get those algorithms back." "We can't, sir. The programs were written in human computer languages. Our programmers don't understand how they work." Kix then felt a headache coming on. His people were good at buying and selling, but the actual science of moving things efficiently through space had always been a human specialty. Now that the humans were gone, the Vrex trade network was falling apart. 3 major trading hubs had already reported serious problems. Ships were backing up at docking stations because no one knew how to manage traffic flow properly. Cargo was getting mixed up or sent to the wrong planets. Some valuable shipments had been lost completely. Dr. Bai Ji-woo sat in her laboratory, on New Terra, watching the galactic communication network slowly die. Her monitors showed the quantum fold relay stations across the galaxy, and more of them were going offline every day. "The relay in the Altair sector just went dark," reported her assistant Kim Sunwoo. "That's the 15th one this month." Dr. Bai nodded sadly. She had helped design those relay stations. Each one was incredibly complex, using quantum mechanics to send messages instantly across thousands of light years. But they needed careful maintenance to keep working properly. "The aliens are trying to fix them," Kim Sunwoo continued. "But they're making the problems worse. 3 stations have suffered complete system failures because they tried to repair components they didn't understand. This was happening all across the galaxy. The communication network that had connected hundreds of worlds was breaking down piece by piece. Soon entire sectors would be cut off from each other, unable to coordinate trade, defense, or emergency responses." Captain Yu Dabin watched the chaos from her stealth ship at the edge of Council space. Her job was to monitor what was happening in the galaxy and report back to Admiral Zhang. "Sir," she transmitted back to human space, Pirate activity has increased by 300%. The Korvik raiders just hit a Helian colony world. No council ships responded because they didn't receive the distress signal until 12 hours after the attack. The pirates were taking advantage of the communication failures and the lack of human patrols. They knew that council ships couldn't coordinate with each other properly anymore. What used to be a dangerous business for pirates was now almost easy. Admiral Jang received the reports with grim satisfaction. Not because he wanted innocent people to suffer, but because every crisis proved that the humans had been right all along. "How are our people doing?" he asked Captain Oh Seung-ho. "Excellent, sir. Our colonies are expanding faster than ever. Without having to waste time in council meetings, our people are free to focus on exploration, research, and building better lives for themselves." This was the irony of the situation. While the galaxy fell apart without human support, humanity itself was thriving. Free from alien politics and bureaucracy, human civilization was advancing at an incredible pace. Meanwhile, in the Helian Assembly, chaos was spreading. Prime Minister Veltar tried to contact the outer colonies for their monthly status report. Instead of clear communication, he got static and broken messages. The quantum fold network was so damaged that reliable communication was becoming impossible. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're getting partial signals from the mining colonies in the outer reach. It sounds like they're under attack, but we can't understand most of the message. Send a fleet immediately." "Sir, without proper communication, we can't coordinate fleet movements. The ships might arrive at the wrong time, or even attack each other by mistake." Veltar realized how dependent they had been on the human-designed communication systems. The Helians had always been proud of their political skills and their ability to manage large territories. But managing required communication, and communication required human technology. Dr. Lim Hee-jin was working in her new laboratory on Sanctuary Station, humanity's secret military headquarters. Her job was to monitor the approaching void swarm that Lee Min-ho had warned the council about. Her calculations showed that the swarm would arrive in 18 months, exactly as predicted. But without the early warning network that humans had designed, the council would have only days of advance notice instead of the months they needed to evacuate civilians and prepare defenses. "The automated monitoring stations are still working," she reported to Admiral Jang, "but the aliens don't know how to read the data properly. They're seeing the warnings, but they think it's just equipment malfunction." This was perhaps the most tragic part of the whole situation. The tools to save millions of lives were still there, but the knowledge to use them had left with the humans. Back in council space, the economy was starting to collapse. Choi Yuna had warned about this exact scenario. She had explained that the galactic economy was built on complex trade relationships and resource sharing. If communication failed and trade routes became inefficient, the whole system would start to break down. Now it was happening exactly as she had predicted. The Virex couldn't move goods efficiently, so prices were rising. The Helians couldn't coordinate with their mining colonies, so resources were becoming scarce. The Altarians couldn't manage their banking networks properly, so financial transactions were getting delayed or lost. Unemployment was rising on dozens of worlds. Some planets were running out of essential supplies. Trade disputes were turning into actual conflicts as different species blamed each other for the growing problems. Council Speaker Zethmar called an emergency session to address the crisis. The great hall that had once been full of confident, alien politicians was now filled with worried, desperate leaders. "The situation is becoming critical," he announced. "Communication failures, economic instability, and security breakdowns are affecting every member species." The Vrex delegate stood up. "We need technical assistance. Our trade network is failing without human expertise." "The Altarians need help with our financial systems," added another delegate. "Human programmers designed most of our banking software. And we need the human early warning systems restored," said the Helian representative. "Our colonies are being attacked, and we can't coordinate proper responses." Council Speaker Zethmar looked around the room. 6 months ago, these same delegates had laughed at human concerns and rejected human solutions. Now they were begging for human help. "Has anyone been able to contact the humans?" he asked. "We've tried," replied the Vrex delegate. But we don't know where they went. Their colonies in Council space have been abandoned. Their ships don't respond to our messages. It's like they disappeared completely. This was true. The humans had been planning their withdrawal for years, quietly establishing colonies in unexplored space beyond the reach of Council surveys. When they left, they had simply vanished into the vast unknown regions of the galaxy. Dr. Park Jin-young was analyzing the situation from her office on New Seoul, humanity's new capital world. Her job was to predict how the galactic collapse would unfold. The communication network will be completely down within 6 months, she reported to President Han Ji-sung. Trade will drop by 60% within a year. Several species are already on the edge of economic collapse. And the Void Swarm? They still have 18 months, but without proper coordination, they won't be able to mount an effective defense. The casualties will be massive. President Han felt sad about the coming tragedy, but he also felt vindicated. Everything that was happening now could have been prevented if the aliens had listened to human warnings and accepted human help. Instead, they had chosen arrogance over wisdom. They had dismissed human expertise as fear and human solutions as unnecessary complexity. Now they were paying the price for that arrogance. Lee Min-ho was in his new research facility, still studying the Void Swarm. His data showed that they would hit the Kepler sector first, then spread throughout Council space, like a plague. Billions would die if proper defenses weren't prepared. But the aliens didn't have the knowledge to prepare those defenses. The tactical information, the weapon designs, and the coordination protocols had all left with the humans. Should we send them our research? Asked his assistant, Dr. Ko Yun-seo. Lee Min-ho thought about all the times his warnings had been dismissed as paranoia. He thought about the politicians who had laughed at his presentations and called his work worthless. No, he said finally. They made their choice when they rejected our help. We warned them what was coming. They didn't want to listen then. It's too late to listen now. The galaxy was heading for disaster, and the humans who could have prevented it were gone. They had walked away quietly. 1 year after the humans left, the Void Swarm arrived exactly where Dr. Lee Min-ho had predicted they would. The automated warning systems that humans had built decades ago detected the massive fleet of dark creatures moving through space. The systems sent out alerts to every major council world, but the messages arrived broken and incomplete. After months of communication network failures, most aliens thought it was just another equipment malfunction. Counselor Zethmar was in his office when the first clear warning finally reached him. The message was from a deep space monitoring station that still had working human equipment. "Sir," his aide said nervously, "we're getting reports of unknown ships approaching the Kepler sector. The automated systems are calling it a critical threat and recommending immediate evacuation." Zethmar looked at the garbled message on his screen. Half of it was static, but he could make out enough words to understand that something big was coming. "How long do we have?" "The message is unclear, sir. Maybe 3 days, maybe less. 3 days to evacuate an entire sector. 3 days to prepare defenses. 3 days to coordinate a response across dozens of worlds that could barely communicate with each other." If the humans had still been part of the council, they would have had 3 months of advance warning. Lee Min-ho's research had shown exactly when and where the Void Swarm would arrive. The early warning systems would have detected them while they were still far away, giving everyone time to prepare proper defenses and evacuate civilians. But the humans were gone, and their knowledge had gone with them. The first Void Swarm ships hit the outer edge of the Kepler sector like a black tide. They were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Living ships that consumed everything in their path, growing stronger with each world they devoured. Captain Rexdan of the Vrex Defense Fleet received the distress call from Kepler Prime, just as his ship was being torn apart by creatures that looked like giant space squids with metal teeth. "All ships retreat to defensive position, Beta 7, he ordered. But half his fleet couldn't hear the command because their communication systems had failed weeks ago. The battle, if it could be called a battle, was a disaster. Council ships arrived at different times, attacked in uncoordinated groups, and often got in each other's way. Without human tactical coordination, What should have been a fighting retreat became a massacre. General Ro Hyun-soo watched the slaughter from his command center on Sanctuary Station. His monitoring equipment showed the entire battle in real time, and what he saw made him sick to his stomach. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving emergency requests for military assistance. They're asking for immediate tactical support and fleet coordination." The general studied the tactical displays. Every projection confirmed what human analysis had shown years ago. This disaster could have been prevented with proper preparation and coordination. "What's our response, sir?" General Ro remembered all the times his military advice had been dismissed as overcautious paranoia. He remembered alien politicians laughing at human defensive strategies and calling them wasteful spending on imaginary threats. "Send them our condolences for their losses," he said quietly. "Nothing more." "Sir, they made their choice when they called our warnings paranoid."
Actions have consequences. The Void Swarm consumed 17 worlds in the first week. Billions died, not just from the creatures themselves, but from the chaos that followed. Refugee ships crashed into each other because there was no traffic.
Control. Evacuation efforts failed because no one could coordinate them properly. Entire populations died waiting for rescue ships that never came because the distress messages never got through. Dr. Song Mira, now heading Humanity's Xenobiology Division, had been studying Void Swarm behavior for months. Her research could have saved most of those worlds, but it came with conditions that the Council could no longer meet. "The swarm creatures are vulnerable to specific energy frequencies," she explained to President Han Ji-sung. "We could design weapons to exploit this weakness, but it would require our quantum manufacturing technology and our advanced computer systems." "And those systems are all in human space now. We took them when we left." The irony was bitter. The tools to defeat the Void Swarm existed, but they were no longer available to the people who needed them most. The Council had rejected human technology as unnecessarily complex, preferring their own proven methods. Now their proven methods were failing against an enemy that human technology could have defeated. Meanwhile, the galactic economy was in complete collapse. Choi Yuna's predictions had all come true. Without efficient communication and transportation, trade between worlds had slowed to a crawl. Many planets were running out of essential supplies. Unemployment had reached crisis levels on dozens of worlds. Some species were on the edge of economic collapse. The Helian colonies in the outer reach had stopped sending resources back to their home worlds because they couldn't get supply ships through pirate-infested space. The Vrex trade network had shrunk by 70% because their cargo ships kept getting lost or attacked. The Altarian banking system was failing because they couldn't process transactions without the human-designed software. Trade Master Kix then sat in his empty office staring at reports that showed his life's work falling apart. The vast commercial empire he had spent decades building was crumbling because he had never bothered to understand how the systems that supported it actually worked. "Sir," his assistant reported, "the Merchants Guild is demanding that we restore the trade routes to pre-withdrawal efficiency." "How?" Kix then asked bitterly. "We don't have the expertise. We don't have the technology. We don't even have the basic knowledge of how the humans made it all work." The assistant looked uncomfortable. "Some guild members are suggesting we offer the humans whatever they want to come back." "The humans don't want anything from us," Kix then replied. "They wanted respect, and we gave them contempt. They wanted partnership, and we gave them dismissal. Now they're gone, and we're paying the price." Dr. Bei Jiwoo continued monitoring the galactic situation from her laboratory on New Terra. The quantum fold network was now completely dead in 3 sectors and barely functional in the rest. Entire regions of space had gone silent, cut off from the rest of galactic civilization. "The cascade failure is accelerating," she reported. "Each relay station that goes offline puts more stress on the remaining ones. At this rate, the entire network will be down within 3 months. Her assistant looked worried. "Ma'am, shouldn't we try to help? There are billions of innocent people who are going to die because they can't call for help." Dr. Bay understood the moral dilemma. But she also remembered the years of frustration trying to get aliens to understand the importance of proper network maintenance. "We tried to help for 60 years, she said sadly. "We warned them about every problem they're facing now. They called us paranoid, primitive, and overcautious. They made their choice." The Void Swarm continued its advance through Council space. Without proper early warning systems, worlds were being caught completely unprepared. Without effective communication, evacuation efforts were chaotic and often failed completely. Without coordinated military responses, the few Council fleets that survived were picked off one by one. Councillor Jindar of the surviving Vrex delegation was desperately trying to organize some kind of response, but she was working with broken tools and incomplete information. "How many worlds have we lost?" she asked her staff. 37 confirmed destroyed, sir. Maybe 50 more have gone silent. We think some might have evacuated, but we can't contact them to find out. 37 worlds, billions of lives, all lost because the Council had been too arrogant to listen to human warnings about a threat that human science had seen coming years in advance. The survivors were starting to panic. Refugee ships were fleeing deeper into Council space, but they had nowhere to go. The communication network was so damaged that no one knew which worlds were still safe. Some refugee fleets ended up flying straight into Void Swarm territory because they couldn't get current information. Prime Minister Veltar of the Helians called another emergency council session, but only half the delegates could attend. The others were either dead, missing, or cut off by communication failures. "We need to find the humans," he announced. "They're the only ones who can help us now." "How?" asked the Altarian delegate. "We don't even know where they went. Their old colonies are empty. Their ships don't respond to our signals. They've vanished completely." The truth was that the humans had been planning for this possibility for years. While the aliens had been focused on politics and immediate profits, humans had been quietly mapping unexplored space and establishing secret colonies beyond the reach of Council surveys. When they left, they had simply retreated to places the aliens didn't know existed. Captain Yu Dobbin continued watching the disaster unfold from her stealth ship. Her job was to gather intelligence and report back to Admiral Zhang, but watching the slaughter was taking an emotional toll. "Sir," she transmitted back to human space, "the Kepler sector is completely lost. The Void Swarm is moving toward the core worlds now. At current rates of advance, they'll reach the major population centers within 6 months. Any change in Council defensive capabilities?" 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The galaxy was now a very different place, and not in a good way. Councillor Jindar of the Vrex stood in the ruins of what used to be the Grand Assembly Hall. Half the building had been destroyed when the Void Swarm reached the Council's capital world. The other half was empty because most of the member species were either dead, missing, or had fled to distant corners of space. She looked at the message in her hands one more time. After months of searching, her people had finally found a way to contact the humans. It had taken bribes, threats, and calling in every favor she had ever earned, but she now had coordinates for a human world called New Sol. The journey to human space took 3 weeks in her small diplomatic ship. As they traveled further from the devastated core worlds, Jindar was surprised to see signs of thriving civilization. These outer rim territories, which the Council had always considered worthless frontier space, were now home to busy trade, routes, and well-defended colonies. But these weren't Council worlds. They were all human. New Sol was unlike anything Jindar had ever seen. The city was clean and efficient, with gleaming towers that reached toward the sky and transportation systems that moved millions of people without any of the chaos that plagued Council worlds. The air was clean, the streets were safe, and everyone seemed to have purpose and direction. It was everything the Council worlds used to be, before everything fell apart. Ambassador Kang Su-min met Jindar at the diplomatic center. The human woman was polite but formal, showing none of the warmth that humans had once displayed in Council meetings. "Councillor Jindar," she said with a slight bow, "welcome to New Sol. I understand you wish to discuss the current situation in Council space." Jindar nodded, trying to hide her desperation. "Ambassador Kang, the situation is critical. The Void Swarm has destroyed nearly half of Council space. Billions are dead. Entire civilizations have been wiped out. We need help. I see. Please have a seat. Would you like some refreshment? As they sat in the comfortable meeting room, Jindar couldn't help but notice how calm and confident the human ambassador seemed. While the galaxy burned, the humans appeared to be thriving. How many worlds have you lost to the swarm? Ambassador Kang asked. 67 confirmed destroyed. Another 100 have gone silent. We assume they're either evacuated or dead. The communication network has completely failed, so we can't coordinate any kind of effective response. Ambassador, Kang nodded sympathetically. That's terrible. My condolences for your losses. The Council would like to discuss terms for human assistance, Jindar said carefully. We acknowledge that perhaps we were hasty in dismissing your contributions. That moment, President Han Ji-sung entered the room. Jindar recognized him from old council recordings, but he looked different now. More confident, less patient. The stress lines around his eyes had been replaced by the quiet satisfaction of a leader whose people were prospering. Counselor Jindar, President Han said, taking a seat across from her. I've been briefed on your situation. You're asking for military assistance against the Void Swarm. Yes, sir. And technical assistance to restore our communication networks. And logistical support for refugee operations and… President Han raised a hand to stop her. I understand. You need comprehensive assistance to deal with a crisis that could have been prevented. Jindar felt a surge of hope. Then you'll help us? The Human Federation operates independently now, President Han said calmly. We have no interest in rejoining the Council or resuming our previous role as the galaxy's maintenance crew. But surely you understand the humanitarian crisis? We understand perfectly, President Han interrupted. We warned you about every crisis you're now facing. You called us paranoid. We offered solutions. You called them primitive. We provided the foundation that kept your civilization running, and you took it for granted. Jindar looked around the room desperately. Through the windows, she could see human ships launching from the spaceport, sleek vessels heading to new worlds, carrying colonists to fresh starts and scientists to unexplored territories. Please, she said, her pride finally breaking. I was wrong. We were all wrong. We should have listened to your warnings. We should have valued your contributions. But millions of innocent people are dying because of our mistakes. Ambassador Kang leaned forward. Counselor, do you remember Dr. Lee Min-ho, the scientist who studied the Void Swarm? Yes, I remember him. Do you remember what you said when he presented his research to the Council? Jindar's face flushed. She remembered. She had called his work theoretical nonsense and suggested he was trying to scare the Council into wasting money on unnecessary defenses. Dr. Lee is now the head of our Xenobiology Research Division, Ambassador Kang continued. His research could potentially save the remaining Council worlds. But he's no longer interested in sharing his work with people who called him a fraud. What would it take to change his mind? President Han answered. Nothing. The time for negotiation was 2 years ago, when we were still offering help freely. You rejected our assistance when it was given willingly. We have no intention of providing it now under duress. Jindar felt her last hope slipping away. Then what can we do? Survive on your own, the same way you insisted on doing when you voted against our proposals. Dr. Song Mira entered the meeting carrying a data tablet. She had been the human economic advisor who had warned about the coming financial collapse. Now she was humanities trade minister. Counselor Jindar, she said politely, I've reviewed your people's situation. The Vrex trade network has lost 80% of its capacity. Your remaining worlds are facing severe shortages of essential goods. Yes, that's correct. The Human Federation is willing to provide humanitarian supplies for refugee populations, food, medical supplies, basic necessities. Jindar felt a spark of hope. What do you need in return? Raw materials, rare minerals, energy crystals, standard trade rates, paid in advance. But we don't have the infrastructure to mine those materials efficiently anymore. Our extraction operations depended on human-designed equipment and human expertise. Dr. Song shrugged. That's not our problem. If you want our supplies, you'll need to find a way to pay for them. The meeting continued for another hour, but the message was clear. The humans were willing to engage in limited trade and provide basic humanitarian aid, but they had no interest in saving the galactic civilization that had rejected them. As Jindar prepared to leave, President Han offered her one final piece of information. Counselor, you should know that the Human Federation now controls 37 star systems with a combined population of 4 billion. Our economy is growing at 15% per year. Our technology has advanced beyond anything we achieved while we were part of the Council. How is that possible? Simple. We're no longer wasting time and resources on political meetings, bureaucratic procedures, and trying to convince ungrateful aliens to accept solutions to problems they refuse to acknowledge. Our people are free to focus on exploration, research, and building better lives for themselves. After Jindar left, President Han stood at his office window, watching the busy streets of New Seoul. His aide approached with the daily reports. Sir, the latest refugee estimates from Council Space? What do the numbers show? Current projections suggest that fewer than 10% of the original Council population will survive the Void Swarm advance. The communication failures have made coordinated evacuations almost impossible. President Han felt sad for the innocent people who were dying, but he also felt vindicated. Everything that was happening now could have been prevented if the aliens had listened to human warnings and accepted human help. Admiral Jiang joined him at the window. Sir, some of our ship captains are asking permission to conduct rescue missions in Council space. They say it's hard to watch innocent people die when we have the ability to help. What's your recommendation, Admiral? Limited humanitarian missions. Only. Evacuation support for civilian populations, but no military intervention against the Void Swarm. If we start fighting their war for them, we'll just become their unpaid army again. President Han nodded. Approved. But make it clear to our people that we're providing charity, not resuming our old role as the galaxy's problem solvers. Dr. Lim Hyejin was working in her new laboratory. Monitoring the Void Swarms continued, advanced through what remained of Council space. Her predictions had been accurate to within days. The creatures were following exactly the path she had calculated years ago. Ma'am, her assistant reported, we're detecting swarm movement toward the core worlds. They should reach the Altarian home system within 3 months. Any sign of effective Council resistance? None, ma'am. Their remaining fleets are too small and too poorly coordinated to mount serious opposition. Dr. Lim looked at the tactical displays showing the swarm's relentless advance. With proper preparation and the defensive strategies that humans had developed, the creatures could have been stopped. But those strategies were now classified human military secrets, available only to protect human worlds. Continue monitoring, she ordered, but maintain our focus on defending human space. If the swarm changes course toward our territory, we need to be ready.